According to a recent Court Watch program administered by the Child Poverty Action Lab, tenants win in eviction court 3% of the time. But when a lawyer shows up to defend a tenant, those outcomes flip with positive outcomes for tenants more than 90% of the time. The facts across these cases aren't different. Landlords rarely follow the laws intended to protect tenants or the procedures required to legally evict, but historically that hasn't mattered. The courts haven't enforced the law, and this has created a culture of non-compliance in the system without any accountability. Landlords have been able to evict at will, and most evictions are, in fact, done unlawfully, sanctioned by our legal system with the cover of illegitimate court orders. For the 12 months ending May 31st, 2022, there were 1,534 eviction cases appealed from Justice of the Peace courts to the Dallas County Courts at Law. Those evictions were upheld on appeal only 20% of the time. And when lawyers represented tenants in those courts, the evictions were upheld only 12% of the time. But that's just the 1,534 cases that were appealed. During that same time period, more than 33,000 evictions were filed in Dallas County. The Child Poverty Action Lab's Court Watch study revealed one other interesting statistic. In the justice courts that were observed, the average length of an eviction trial was just 3 minutes and 59 seconds. What does this mean? It means we spend fewer than 4 minutes to decide whether vulnerable tenants lose their home, and we get it wrong most of the time. For decades, the landlord community has known that fewer than 1% of tenants will be represented by a lawyer that will hold them accountable. They assume, rightly, that 99% of the time they would get their eviction approved whether they followed the law or not, so why go to the trouble? And they don't. That's why tenants win with lawyers in the courtroom at such high rates. But what would happen if a lawyer was present in every eviction courtroom, every day, to represent every tenant? Enter saturation theory. At the Dallas Eviction Advocacy Center, we believe that saturating eviction courts with highly trained eviction defense lawyers, standing at the ready to represent all tenants every single day, will change the entire system. When the likelihood of having a lawyer representing a tenant isn't 1%, but instead is 100%, instead of assuming they will get their eviction approved by the court regardless of their compliance with the law, as has historically been the case, landlords will learn that if they want their evictions, they'll need to follow the law. This alone will change the paradigm in landlord-tenant relations from one of non-compliance to one where the law is respected and upheld. But that isn't all we do here at the Dallas Eviction Advocacy Center. We also work closely with rent assistance providers to help tenants catch up when they fall behind on rent. And we have relationships with nonprofits across the county that provide other necessary wraparound services and interventions like assistance with food, childcare, transportation, and public benefits. We're not just in the courtrooms, we're out in the community, finding the people in need right where they are. And we bring the assistance they need to their communities instead of insisting that if they want the help bad enough, they'll come to ours. Each day, we send postcards to each person who was sued for eviction the previous day, and we've recently implemented an automated text campaign to reach more tenants that need our help. During times of crisis, our team works to solve problems. After a recent apartment fire near Fair Park, we worked with the city and other nonprofits to temporarily house 42 people displaced by the fire. We worked with each individual to identify their needs and help them transition into new housing opportunities. We also worked to source food and water for entire apartment complexes without power after storms. Our lawyers are regular speakers at public events, educating the community on their rights and educating other lawyers about how to join the fight. We're also thought leaders on matters of policy. Our legislative agenda is robust, and we regularly meet with elected officials and their staff at all levels of government to advocate for the interests of tenants. While the landlord community has long been represented by powerful and well-funded lobbyists, poor tenants have had no significant voice in the halls of power. But those days are over. And when we can't get unconscionable laws changed legislatively, our impact litigation program attacks unconstitutional statutes through the courts. Our lawyers are highly trained in eviction law, and they're passionate about our mission. This isn't just a job, it's a calling. Our operating model is lean. We are a 100% virtual operation, and we do not accept any government or other funding that restricts who we can help or how. Funding sources for traditional legal aid organizations come with handcuffs. Only the poorest of the poor are eligible, and undocumented immigrants can't get help at all. Our eligibility criteria, however, is simple. If you live in Dallas County and you're facing eviction, then you're qualified. We don't care whether you're below or above the average median income or what your immigration status might be. Our goal right now is growth. With just 5 full-time lawyers, we can't be in all 10 eviction courts across Dallas County every day. We need to have at least 15 lawyers to accomplish saturation theory in Dallas County, and that means we need to continue to develop funding sources to arrive at our at-scale budget of $3.5 million per year. At present, the Dallas Eviction Advocacy Center is supported by some of the biggest names in Texas philanthropy, like the Meadows Foundation, the Dallas Foundation, United Way of Metropolitan Dallas, the King Foundation, and Margot Perot. With additional help from philanthropic donors like you, we'll show that the unlawful eviction crisis can be solved at scale. We're about to change everything, and we hope you'll join us.